Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We are going to have an RPG item look-see here today. It's not technically an unboxing because this is not in the shrink wrap, but this has just arrived from our compadres at Noble Knight, and it is in a bag to protect it on its way. This is Monster Coliseum. We'll take a look at all of the little doodads and goodies that come in this thing. This was the first supplement for what we now call I think we called it at the time, RuneQuest 3rd Edition, which is the version of RuneQuest that was published by Avalon Hill in collaboration with Coliseum. And there's a lot of story behind that, but the short of it is that Coliseum did not feel that they were able to properly market RuneQuest, even though it was very popular among RPGs at the time. So they made a deal with Avalon Hill to do a couple of things, including publish some of their board games. But for Avalon Hill to take over the printing and marketing and all that stuff of RuneQuest, and then Coliseum would do the creative work and create the products. This resulted in, due to the details of the contract, resulted in the semi-severing of RuneQuest from its previous setting of Glorantha, and was adapted to this kind of fantasy medieval / ancient Earth, which I thought there were some really good products for, but it was weird, and a lot of people who really loved Glorantha were put off by that. That changed at some point in the products in the product line's life, but very early on, they were doing these types of box sets, and there was a Viking set and a ninja set for medieval Japan, and a bunch of other cool things. And they adapted some of the classic RuneQuest old material, such as Griffin Mountain was turned into Griffin Island, which is an almost completely different product in almost every way. But it took Glorantha out of the RuneQuest. But it's actually a really great product, and I think a bit underrated on its own terms. So we're going to have a look at Monster Coliseum here today. So this is in what I take to be about a 1-inch box. This is one of those rare occasions when I actually have a tape measure right here. So about a 1 1/16 inch box sounds about right. And I think we're going to find that this is all in really nice shape. Ooh, look at that. So I have never owned this product, right? I have always, since it came out, owned RuneQuest 3rd Edition. And I believe that RuneQuest 3rd Edition is a fine edition of RuneQuest on its own terms and is worth your time. It maybe not if you're into Glorantha specifically. But as a generic, not generic necessarily, because it's anything but generic, but as a multi-fantasy setting rules engine, I think RuneQuest 3rd Edition has a ton to recommend it. But we'll talk about that on another day. So we have this range stick, but this is one of the products that I got rid of some of my stuff, and it was dumb, and I wish I wouldn't have done that. This is one that I actually never owned, and I grabbed it because I liked the price that Noble Knight was selling it for. And as I think you can see, while it's not mint, there is a bit of scuffing on the box. It is in great shape. So this is what's in the box. You have a Coliseum book, intended by use for both players and game masters. We have a monster book for game masters only. We have a play aids, which is this booklet. Track sections on stiff board. Very curious to see that. Range stick on stiff board. It's not that stiff. This is what I would call light cardstock. And a Coliseum floor plan. Okay, that's interesting. And then this play aids has a GM log, adventurer sheets, game aids, which include little stat blocks for different kinds of chariots, Egyptian, Persian, heavy Roman, and Chinese chariots. That's pretty cool. Here's Hittite, Sumerian, and Celtic chariots. So this looks like a chariot racing minigame if you want to do chariot racing using the RuneQuest rules, which might sound goofy, I gotta say, but is really not that bad of an idea. And I'd say that the wargaming roots of RPGs are much in evidence here. So these are those track section things, and I think you're supposed to use, and then you have, let's see, we got another one of these. 5mm track sections. Oh, and you're supposed to actually cut these out, which are the chariots. There's no way I'm going to do that. And then you could put this, cut each section out and put this whole thing together, and you can turn it into an entire Circus Maximus. And then you have the arena, which is a standard sized, I'm going to say standard wargame sized map, meaning that it's approximately, for those who aren't wargamers, roughly 22 by 34. And it looks like it's a whole arena here with a hex grid on the battling part of it, and floor plan type areas over here. So you can easily, what's the scale here, I wonder, though? That's the thing. Because I think if you were to put 28 or even 25mm miniatures on here, I think they'd end up being rather huge. So you might need to mock up some counters or something for that. This is an interesting looking product. And then this range thing, I think, is how you figure out range for arrows and stuff like that when you're shooting from chariot to chariot. This is an interesting product. Let's look at the books now. I'm not 100% sure that I would use it as it seems to be intended. I'm curious to know who created this thing, actually. One of the sticking points for the contract was actually that Avalon Hill wasn't putting the credits on the covers, which made Coliseum upset. Don't see that here either. It does say possession of either Deluxe RuneQuest or the RuneQuest player box is necessary for the play of Monster Compendium, or Monster Coliseum, and that's true. We'll talk about that another day as well, about the goofy way that they publish this thing. So this is the kind of book for this thing that tells you all of this, how to use this material. And even on the cover page here, I don't see credits. Oh, here we go. Steve Perrin, who was one of the creators of RuneQuest, and Dan Nolte. Artists by Lisa Free, Kevin Ramos, Mike Bloom, and Dan Nolte. And format graphics and production by Charlie Crank. And in many respects, this stuff looks like a Chaosium product, right? Rather than an Avalon Hill product. So, with which I'm pretty familiar, let's say, if you're not familiar with the channel. So, the pit. This is underneath the Coliseum. So, you've got like a whole thing on gladiators here. So you can do chariot racing and or gladiators. This is a famous statue of Augustus, which has been lightly modified by the artist. Barbarian civilized charioteers, time and distance. You've got these chariot sheets, which are also in the player aid booklets. A quite nice full-page illustration. And, of course, we've got these very colorful examples of play, which is something that was carried over from RuneQuest 3rd Edition, and really prior RuneQuest materials as well, where if you read all these, you actually get kind of a neat little story throughout the rules. It's quite neat. And that was a feature that I was introduced to by RuneQuest 3rd Edition, by the way. Solo adventure. Oh, that's interesting. These rules allow you to play RuneQuest when there are no other players about. Monster Coliseum is well suited to solo play. That's an interesting idea. Losing it yourself. Okay, designing it yourself. Very interesting. And then we have a little ad here of for Supplement 4, Vikings. So I think this was number 1. The 2 character sheet sets were 2 and 3, and Vikings was number 4, if I'm remembering that correctly. So here is a monster book. Now, if you had the RuneQuest Deluxe Edition, for 3rd Edition, there was a whole bestiary section in there. So you didn't have to buy this just to get monsters. So we have soldiers and gladiators. I can see, to some extent, how these would be useful. Monster gladiators, master gladiators, notorious duck gladiator. Awesome. Okay. Fighting Minotaur. Roscoe, the Retiarius. Here's a werewolf. You get some really exotic stuff happening in your arena. But you know what? You know, we've got the Pamasani arena in Harn. You could leverage this material there too. And I actually feel like RuneQuest is a really good match. RuneQuest / Mythros is a really good match for Harn. Here's arena monsters, which run from absolutely pedantic stuff like dogs and bears all the way up to dinosaurs, which is pretty fantastic. That's very startling for the gladiator when a dinosaur comes out and we're like, what the hell is that? Pretty fantastic set piece, actually. Supernatural monsters such as a Bender Snatch or a Manticore. A lot of these are things that are in the bestiary too, though. Here's On the Road. Following descriptions for the Game Master's convenience in developing scenarios. Interesting. So these may be intended for use with the solitaire play stuff, which is interesting. Another full-sized and rather nice illustration here. Here's some caravans. That's kind of nice. So these are like parties that one might encounter on the road, which is pretty neat, actually. Some of which are, in fact, tied to Glorantha, but not all of them. I mean, it's not like they completely took Glorantha out. They just started supporting RuneQuest with this sort of generic fantasy Earth, which was a bit ill-defined, I have to say. I mean, you never kind of got a sense of why you have medieval stuff and ancient stuff and all this other stuff kind of floating around together, and you were just kind of handed that and expected to make it work. And I think I would have preferred some more guidance on that. But it was a serviceable setting. It's actually what we used at the time, since it's a little hard to make heads or tails of Glorantha from the material that's in RuneQuest 3rd Edition, in that original box set. So, quick look at Monster Coliseum for RuneQuest. This is a product from 1985 is the copyright date, at least. Not sure if that's the release date. I'm encountering a lot of release dates that don't line up with copyright dates in recent years, the recent 2 years or so, because of COVID. And I don't know if that's the case here or not, but 1985 is the release date. Very early support product for the RuneQuest 3rd Edition. Hopefully you have enjoyed this brief look. If you have, please do give the video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more material on RuneQuest 3rd Edition, or its setting of Fantasy Earth, or any other edition of RuneQuest for that matter. If you'd like to help support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the links in the video description to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. Until next time, thanks again for watching, and happy gaming.